Now, however, we have a new experience. We have victory. A remarkable and definite victory. A bright gleam has caught the helmets of our soldiers and warmed and cheered all our hearts. This is not the end. It is not even the beginning of the end. But it is perhaps the end of the beginning. General Montgomery has gained a glorious and decisive victory at Alamein.
In 1942, Britain's army in North Africa was on the retreat. It had been forced back to a desert railway halt at Alamein. A new commander, General Bernard Montgomery, was sent out to take over. He was not well known, he had no experience of desert warfare, and he inherited a tired and dispirited army. Yet within weeks he was to win the first major victory of the war. The Battle of Alamein lasted 12 days. Montgomery then led his victorious 8th Army across 2,000 miles of North Africa. No longer an unknown general, he was now Monty, a hero to his troops and to the people at home. He returned to lead the D-Day landings with 4 Allied armies under his command and won the Battle of Normandy. But he soon fell out with his American Supreme Commander, General Eisenhower.
I do not believe that Eisenhower ever really understood the strategy of the Normandy campaign. He seemed to me to get the whole thing muddled up.
We had no respect for Montgomery at all. He was a poseur. He was rude. He didn't respect his allies. And he was a complete politician.
An extremely successful general, an unsuccessful man.
Well, he wasn't a nice man, but nice men don't win wars.
Monty was a god to us. Everyone was honored to serve under him.
I think the people that knew him well and served him closely worshipped him. And the people that didn't, I would say a great many of them hated him. He was the right guy, less like Churchill, at the right time. And he got the right breaks. And we needed a fellow like Montgomery.
My business, as you know, is fighting. Fighting the Germans. Oh, anybody else, too, who wants to have a fight.
Monty's whole life was to be a series of battles, from the day he left England in 1889, bound for Australia, where his father had been made Bishop of Tasmania.
It was a wonderful setting for a child, but the freedom of outdoor colonial life was marred by only one problem. Monty's father, the bishop, was away for long periods of the year visiting his flock and leaving his young wife to run the home. Monty resented her harsh Victorian discipline, and there began a fierce clash of wills from which invariably Monty emerged the loser.
They were two strong characters. He probably got a few beatings, I know he did.
He was always in trouble and was quickly cast as the black sheep of the family.
One day he was caught smoking. His father, the bishop, brought him here to the altar in the private chapel of the house. Together, they knelt in prayer. Eventually, the bishop rose and said, "Sin no more, my son, the Lord has forgiven you." Then came a voice from the doorway, "But I have not." It was Monty's mother standing with a cane in her hand, and not for the first time, he was led away to be thrashed.
Colonial life ended at the age of 14 when the family returned to England. Monty was sent to public school and then to Sandhurst. The colonial boy never quite fitted, a born leader but a bully too, who was caught torturing a fellow cadet.
Bernard went behind him and very unwisely set fire with a box of matches to his shirt tails. Of course, there was a frightful damage to himself, and this wretched man had to go to hospital. Afterwards, a very large inquiry, and consideration was given as to whether gentleman cadet Montgomery, as they were called, should be fit to hold the King's Commission.
He was disgraced but not expelled. His first posting was to India, then to France at the start of the First World War. Here, as an infantry officer, he saw at first hand the waste of life caused by inadequate training and incompetent generals.
Monty's story very nearly ends here at Metteren, near the French-Belgian border. In October 1914, he led his company in a bayonet charge against the German positions on the outskirts of the village. Having successfully stormed the German trenches in hand-to-hand fighting, he went forward to reconnoitre. As he approached the village, he was picked off by a German sniper firing from the church tower. The bullet passed straight through his right lung. A young soldier ran forward to help, but he too was shot. Monty shouted an order that no one else from his company was to try to reach him before dark. The German sniper went on firing, but the body of the young soldier had fallen over Monty and acted as a shield. For the next 3 hours, he lay in pouring rain, bleeding to death.
A grave was dug, but Monty survived and returned to active service. His experience in the trenches changed him from an aggressive bully into a decorated officer determined to master his profession. But to get peacetime promotion, he needed a wife, and on a holiday in Brittany, he saw his chance.
We were whirling round the room when somebody of the party came and said, "You've got to come back up to the balcony because there's somebody wants to meet you." Well, the somebody turned out to be, was what I thought, quite an elderly man. And he said he was called Bernard Montgomery. And he'd been watching me dancing and he was going to dance with me. So onto the floor we went. And I thought to myself, oh dear, I don't think he's going to be able to dance rather critically, nor could he sing in tune. He kept singing to himself, humming, When You and I Were 17, which was the thing we were dancing to. Well, of course, I was 17 and a half, and I thought to myself, well, he's rather ancient. I've discovered he was double my age. We spent the rest of the evening together, and towards the end he said to me, now we're going to sit out on the stairs, the last dance. He was very determined, so when I had to do what he said, because he was quite sure he knew what he wanted to do. And so he sat on the stairs, and he then began to extol my praises and say, you know, what nice coloured hair I'd got or something, which I thought was a bit funny because it was just perfectly ordinary golden colour like my father's. Anyway, he then said, now, I made up my mind, I'm going to marry you. So I thought to myself, well, he's a bit mad, this man. And I wanted to laugh, but I realised I mustn't laugh because I realised he was deadly serious.
At 9 o'clock the following morning, Major Montgomery presented himself at Betty's hotel to see her parents. He'd like to get to know their daughter better, he said. Betty was told by her mother to go for a walk each day with Bernard for the rest of the holiday.
I can't remember how many weeks we walked, but it seemed to me for 100 years. We walked down to the sands, and although I thought, well, he is, as my mother says, he's a very nice man, all the rest of it, but he was extremely, I thought, dull, because all he talked about was warfare. He told me that he was going to win the next war, and he drew on the sands this little cane that he always carried with him, his tanks and how he was going to deploy them. Well, you can imagine, age 17, and only really being keen on music at that moment, I wasn't the least interested. Anyway, I was treated exactly like a military manoeuvre, so in the end of this, about 3 weeks of going round Saint-Malo and Dinard, I said to my mother, no, I really can't bear this anymore, it's finished.
That Christmas, Betty and her family went for a skiing holiday in Switzerland.
And when we arrived there, to my amazement, who did I see? The first person I saw was Monty. I thought, oh dear, no, not again. So anyway, I said to these friends of mine, look, what am I going to do? I simply must make him see I cannot marry him. So there was going to be a fancy dress dance at the hotel, and he went, as you can guess, probably, as Napoleon. I said, I know what I'll do. I'll go as a newspaper boy. So I blackened my face and put on trousers and tucked my hair under a cap and behaved like an idiot, shouting out in Cockney all the evening. And after that, he really did see, I was just a young, stupid little girl. I mean, it wasn't the person he thought or imagined he could make me, possibly. So then I remember our last conversation, he said to me, well, you're the only thing in my life I've never conquered. So I shall wash you out of my life. Wash me out he did.
Monty would not accept defeat. In the skiing party was a widow with 2 teenage sons, Betty Carver. To her, Monty now switched his attentions.
I think he went into it to start with in a fairly cold-blooded manner. But to be quite honest, I think he really did, whether before he got engaged or shortly afterwards, became really in love, and he got carried away rather more than he intended to.